Does your suspension really matter on your motorcycle? And if so, what about it actually makes the difference? Your suspension can really make a big difference in a couple of places. Of course, this is all from my experience and a little science. There are a few places the suspension is really gonna make a difference for you. One is gonna be on choppy road conditions, when you've got a lot of bumps and things like that. The type of suspension you choose and how it's tuned is gonna be very important. I'm gonna go over what the differences are and why they matter so much in those situations. Also, you need to look at performance. When you're hitting hard corners and you're really riding your bike to its maximum performance, your suspension's gonna make a huge difference on how well that bike hooks up and sets stable in the corner. You don't want that front end washing out or wobbling. Again, your suspension is going to make a big difference on how you handle when pressing into those corners. Kind of the last big feature the suspension's gonna make a difference for you is when you're adding weight to your motorcycle. So when you're riding two up or packing a lot of luggage like I have on some of my cross-country adventures in the past. Having the right suspension with that added weight is absolutely a game changer. You don't want your bike so soft that it's bottoming out every time you hit one of those hard bumps, whether it's extra passengers or just on a crazy deep potholed up road. You also don't want it so stiff that you never get a full compression and is nearly bucking you off the motorcycle when you hit these deep potholes and bumpy roads. So really finding that sweet spot right in the middle, not too hard, not too soft. It's kind of like the fairy tale. What's it called? I can't think of it. Y'all let me know down in the comments below. What was that fairy tale where the, it was too hard, this one's too hard, that one's... Anyhow, y'all make sure that you get your suspension the right stiffness and tuned correctly. Let's take a minute and talk about what that really means. Again, like I said, if you have too soft suspension, you can actually bottom out, jarring your back and jarring your whole spine every time you ride. It's one of the worst things that can happen. Not to mention, it can create a lot of damage to your motorcycle. Typically from the factory, suspension is a little bit soft. It seems like it's easier for them to make overly soft suspension. And I think when people are doing test rides and they don't feel the little bumps, they really like that, right? It's kind of like a factory seat. You go to a factory and you can push your hand all the way down on any factory seat. And that seems really nice and soft when you're in the store, but then when you're on that long road trip, you end up sitting on your pan. This is why people upgrade to seats like my signature ASR gel seat I'm rocking on my Road Glide. It gives you that support and pushes back. Suspension's kind of the same thing. They make it extra soft from the factory. Like I said, I think because it feels super plush in the beginning. But on that long road trip, that suspension is gonna give you a lot of nightmares. Like diving on the front end on stops, diving on the front end when you're setting into a corner, bottoming out easier. These are the main reasons people upgrade to performance suspension. Myself, I've gone with the Legend system, front and rear. It's made right here in America. They offer veterans discounts, and they're just a company that I'm honestly excited to stand behind. On the rear, I've got the Revo Arc, and this is something that I've absolutely loved because it really allows me to do a lot of adjustment. When you look at a suspension, there are a couple ways that it can perform. How fast it squishes down, and then how fast it comes back. Those are the things that are really gonna matter for you. Think of it like a basketball. If you've got a basketball full of air and you bounce it on the ground, it comes back super fast. If it's flat, you bounce, it doesn't come back enough. The adjustable suspension is controlling that kind of in the same way. I'm gonna try to explain this on a piece of paper. Y'all are gonna get to see my mad art skills, okay? So here's your shock. You've got a piston and a seal, and when that piston's going up and down, it's pushing fluid up and down inside that shock. What happens is when there's no remote reservoir, like this, when your piston goes all the way up, your max compressed right here and all this fluid is stopped. By having a remote reservoir, you can actually push that fluid through and into your remote reservoir, allowing you a little bit more stroke out of your suspension, which is gonna give you a little bit longer stroke and a little bit more comfort and a little bit more performance, if you will, out of your suspension. That's the advantage to the remote reservoir, it also allows that fluid to cool down. When it's going up and down and in and out as you're going down the road, it's building friction and heat. Getting it outside of that cylinder and into its own private cylinder is also gonna help dissipate the heat and cool that bad boy and all that fluid down. So the adjustments are to allow the fluid to flow more quickly and more freely back and forth between this piston and the actual shock itself. The more freely it flows, the faster your bike is gonna rebound off of whatever it is you may have hit. When I'm riding solo, I like to be about 5 clicks to the clockwise. So that's the rear, and that tells you what to do with all the weight, but what about the front? When you're coming into corners, you don't want it diving, you don't want it washing out or wobbling. This is where having a proper front suspension is gonna come into place. It's more of a safety thing as far as I'm concerned, and a comfort when I'm carving those mountains. So I have gone with the Axio front cartridges. So it uses your factory front suspension, but it just changes out the cartridge. You see, you can get down there, there you go. They use the stock tubes for your suspension, but they put a new cartridge inside of it. That cartridge is doing the exact same thing. It's gonna control how fast your bike rebounds, how easy it compresses, keeps you from bottoming out, nose diving, being too cushy up front, which is a common myth. People think they want it super soft. You really don't. It leaves you in a bad position for handling, and it's not great for comfort either. Y'all have seen that car going down the road. The suspension is wore out and it's doing this. You can have the same effect on your motorcycle if you don't have the front and back tuned correctly. Another thing you're gonna wanna remember, y'all, about that front suspension is it is just about the rider's weight. It's not adjusted to rider and passenger's weight, so you don't need to adjust it as often or as frequently as you do the rear. All in all, that gives you a little detail as to what exactly is going on with your suspension, how it works, why the adjustments are important, why so many people are loving these remote reservoirs that have become so popular lately. It really does make a difference for you. It has made a huge difference for me, especially running, you know, like I said, when you start getting into curvy roads and you want your bike to set in those corners and get stable and not to be wobbling around and throwing you off. It lets you push your bike a little bit further to its limits, even with luggage and passengers, in turn making it a little bit more of a fun ride as far as I'm concerned. I hope you all enjoyed my little talk about suspension and why it makes such a big difference. I had a couple people asking me to make a video on this suspension, so I did that right here. If y'all have something else you want me to make a video on, let me know in the comments below. I do read them, I do keep up on them, and I would be absolutely happy to try to make one for absolutely everybody who writes down there. I don't know how realistic that is. I'm gonna give you everything I can. I enjoy spending the time with y'all on these videos. I hope y'all enjoy it as much as I do. Listen, suspension isn't a cheap upgrade, but it's a safety upgrade, it's a performance upgrade, it's a comfort upgrade. It's probably what I would upgrade before I even did any motor upgrades. Suspension first, in my opinion. When you're putting on lots of miles, that extra couple horsepower might not make as much a difference as being able to go those extra couple miles. Maybe it's different for you, I don't know. Either way, if you want the suspension, it's a big upgrade. You save up your money, you invest in it, you'll be happy you did. I can just about guarantee it. I get messages all the time from people saying they invested in this Legend suspension and they thank me for the referral. So hopefully it does the same for you. So y'all put your mind to improving your bike, making it the absolute best it can be so you can enjoy the experience to its fullest and you stay stubborn.